Hey, hello guys. How you doing? This is Faye back here again with a wrap-up video, a sort of late wrap-up video, I know, but it is Mother's Day here in Mexico today, and I was just getting ready to go to my mom's house. I have the gifts right here, and this is going to be a really big party today. So I said to myself, let me just record the video real quick, put it out, and that way, you know, because if I wait more, then it wouldn't make sense to put a wrap up video at the end of the month. Um, so quick, we're gonna talk about the physical books that I read, the books that I read on my Kindle. Uh, I read some comics as well, and what I'm currently reading as well. So let's try to go fast through this. First, and by the way, there's going to be timestamps here just for you to move forward if you want to. Well, let's go ahead and start with the physical books that I read this month, last month, April. So first, I finally finished, can you believe it? The Dune series. I read Heretics of Dune and Chapter House of Dune in April. So these two books, man, I gotta say, I hated both of these books, especially Heretics of Dune. But I'm not gonna say a lot about these books right now because I'm going to make a video about the entire series, whether it's worth your time or up until when you should read the series, right? The first book only, the second book, up until second book, or you understand but yeah, I'm gonna talk about this in another video. Just wait for the video because I have a lot to say about that shit. Next, I finished reading as well Swing Time by Sadie Smith. Now, this book was okay. If you remember the last wrap up that I made, I was like 100 page. I had read like 100 pages last time we spoke about this book, and I was really not feeling it. I told you that the premise was a lot like My Brilliant Friend from Elena Ferrante, right? So yeah, the premise is a bit like that, but I was like 50% into this book, and I was about to drop it, right? I was about to DNF it, but then the story picked up. So this story is told in flashbacks, and what's going on in the present as well. So we follow this girl, right, that has a friend that's like there's a friendship there when they're growing up, but there's also a rivalry, right? And these two friends grow apart, right, through life, and through flashbacks, we see their childhood, right? What was it like? And when we're in the present, we only get the perspective of one of the friends, right? So we don't really know what happened to the other friend, up until the stories, the flashbacks, and the present connect, right? And that's when the story gets good, right? But I mean, you need to read more than 50% of the book to get to the good part. So this is an okay book. I don't rate books, but if you don't have anything else to read, you can read this. It's fine. It's okay. It's a good read, right? Then I read a fantastic book. You know, I had this book on my shelves for, I don't know, 1 year, 2 years now. And after I read Swing Time, I wanted to read something short, right? So I picked up One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, right? So one flew east, one flew west, one flew over the cuckoo's nest. That's the rhyme. And here, if you saw the movie with Jack Nicholson, it's pretty different from the movie, especially on the perspectives, right? Because the book is told from the perspective of the Indian guy, right? That's supposedly mute. So that's a great perspective to have within the asylum, right? And the movie, the protagonist is Jack Nicholson, is this guy right here, which is sort of the protagonist of the story here, but not really. I don't know what to tell you about this book if you saw the movie already. I mean, it's a classic movie, right? But what I can tell you is that at the very end of the story, it got me, it gave me chills, right? Because you see the chief, that's the name of the Indian guy. They call it chief, right? And it's an enormous person, 6'5" or something like that. But yeah, I don't want to spoil the book a lot. It's just the basic premise of the movie. You have all of these lunatics put into the asylum under the care of Doctor or Nurse Ratchet, right? And there's this person with red hair that seems crazy. In the movie, he's Jack Nicholson, but in the book, it's just so much more than that, man. It tries to give you the perspective that the Nicholson character, gets into the asylum because he's lazy, right? He's so smart. He's gonna fool everyone. He's gonna live in the asylum for free, get fed for free, get housing for free, because he's that smart. But then when you start reading the book, everything is messed up in his head, right? And it's a really short book. It's like 260 pages or so. You can read this in like 2 days. And it really stuck with me, man, this book. I mean, it's fantastic. And, I know there's a series, by the way, I believe from Netflix, that it's called Ratched, right? And it focuses on the nurse, right? But for what I've seen from trailers and such, I didn't see the series, but they're making it seem like she's a villain or she's like some sort of serial killer or serial something, right? But no, I mean, she's just a nurse that's frustrated with her life as well, right? So yeah, it's pretty interesting what this book has to offer. Now, let's go ahead and move on to the books that I read on digital on my Kindle. All right, so in April, I read, this book I'm not going to talk about it because I spoke about this book in my last video from the Booker Prize list of this year, and that's Perfection by Vincenzo Latronico. And if you want to see me talk about that book, there's a video already on the channel. I also read on digital. That's it because the other ones I'm still reading them, and I'm gonna talk about them in a bit. For now I just read Perfection by Vincenzo Latronico, and then I'm just trying to look at the list here. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and move on to the comics that I read this month. And it's been a while since I read comics, and this happens all the time. There's months that I really want to read comics, and there's other months that I really don't want to touch them, right? But the first comic I read this month was the Complete Providence comic, and I'm going to put it here, the Complete Comic of Providence by Alan Moore, right? So why did I read this book? I'm a big fan of Alan Moore's comics and novels, right? I have a few here. But you can see in this book that he already wanted to switch to the to prose, right? To the novel medium, because there's a lot of prose in this comic, right? Like a lot. And Providence, what is it about? Well, I want to think that this book is an homage to Lovecraft's work and world, right? So Providence is set in the American South, right? And if you know Alan Moore, you know that he loves that setting, the American South, the deep Louisiana, swamps and stuff. but also the deep South, the the slavers South. So in this novel, and it's a pretty long novel, graphic novel that is, we focus on a guy that's doing research for a book he's writing, right? So he finds out about a secret society maybe that's in the South of America, and he goes there. He quits his job at a newspaper, and he goes to follow the trails of this organization, right? And he finds different families that belong to the organization and were expelled from it. He finds people that still belong to the organization, but they're very secretive about it. And there's I'm not going to spoil the middle or the end, but there's talks about. I mean, what I'm trying to say here is that if you haven't read Lovecraft, his books, his stories, this book is really not for you, right? It really doesn't. It won't make sense for you if you read it, or at least you're not gonna enjoy it all the way through, because this was the second to last book, graphic novel that he wrote, Alan Moore. He published Providence, and the last novel he published, graphic novel, was the Tempest, right, from the League. Um, but yeah, you can tell that he was saying goodbye to the genre here. This is a monumental work of reference from Lovecraft's work, and you can imagine what gets involved here. We got different secret books, if you know what I'm talking about. You got different beasts, right? You have this diffumination, um, or this nebulous divide of the real and the divine, right? The real world and what's beyond this world. So it's pretty interesting, this work. I know that I'm being really vague right now, but that's how I like that's how I like you to go into this. I would like you to go into this blind, sort of, or not blind, but just know that this is entirely focused on Lovecraft's work, right? So that's really really relevant. So if you haven't read Lovecraft, just get to it and then get to Providence, right? I also read another comic, a graphic novel, the acclaimed first graphic novel, right? And that's of course A Contract with God by Will Eisner, right? And now this novel really stuck with me because, okay, so the novel includes four separate stories, right? The first story is called A Contract with God, and that puts the name on the book. What strikes to me is that you can really tell why this is called the first graphic novel, right? There's no superheroes here, only the theme of humanity is touched here. The banality of the routine is touched here. Jewishness, right, as a way of living, and this sort of world that's against it a little bit, especially in the time it was written. Uh, so I wanted to mention this because there's four stories, right? And within these four stories, you can really see the evolution of Eisner. You can really see the evolution of Eisner here in this book as both a writer and as an artist, right? Just his drawings, and also the way he composes the panels, right? The vignettes. So first, the first story, A Contract with God, is very open, right? You don't really see these vignettes of 333, what's usually used. You just see maybe one, two drawings per page, very loosely connected. So that's the first story, right? And by the end, by the time you get to the fourth story, you can basically see that it's a graphic novel from our present, right? The vignettes, everything is perfectly divided. He has perfected the art, and that's what's been used all through these decades, right? So it's a fantastic read if you want to touch on the subjects of, well, God, obviously, but also money, prostitution, way of living of the poorest people in the city. It's just very, very nice to read and refreshing to read, even at this uh, time, 2025, right? So, moving on to what I'm currently reading right now. And we're doing good on time. We're going to go through this fast. So, first, what I'm reading, I finally started uh, The Wise Man's Fear, right? I started The Wise Man's Fear. This is a behemoth of a book. I'm on page 100, well, 96. I just started this yesterday, right? And it already made me cry like once. I actually marked. And I mean, it's nice, this book. Once I finish this book and the novella that's dedicated to the character Ari, I believe, I'm going to do a video of the series as well because, yeah, the prose, as you know it, obviously is fantastic, right? The world is rich, but I'm not really liking the human interactions in this book that much, right? Especially between men and women. I don't know why, but I will know why once I finish the book. I hope, right? So this is going pretty good so far. What else? What else? I'm also reading, and this is for university, right? Right now, we're gonna get into the Renaissance at my university. So I teach philosophy, art history, all of that. And it has come to time now of the year. Every year, I read this book with my students, and it is the Discourse on the Method by Descartes, right? So this is a fantastic read. I basically know this book by memory, right? But I like to read it every year just so I have it fresh in my mind by the time I have to talk about it in class, right? So pretty short book, pretty simple, pretty basic philosophy, right? And now I'm also reading. I'm trying to translate this journeys with a white map, right? Journeys with a white map, Jesus. And when I bought this book, I didn't know anything about it, right? I thought that it was going to be like a travel diary, right? But no, it wasn't. And I'm glad it wasn't because the topic of this book is pretty interesting. It talks about the novel, right? And the evolution of the modern novel. Um, and, as we know, if you like to read, you should know that the novel, as we know it, started with Don Quixote, right, by Cervantes. And that's, you may think, a very well known fact, but what's not well known is the evolution and the influence of this novel and how it has spread, and the evolution of the novel in Russia, in England, in the entire world, right? So this book is about that, and it's pretty interesting. I'm about halfway on the book, and yeah, it's pretty good. And this is actually very helpful for my classes, right? Because sometimes, not all the time, they give me some hours for literature, right, as well. So that book is fantastic for that. Also, I'm continuing to read, continuing the list from the Booker Prize, right? So the Booker Prize, let me tell you which one I'm reading right now. And it is a book by a Japanese author, which is Under the Eye of the Bird. Sorry, Under the Eye of the Big Bird by Hiromi Kawakami, right? So this book is don't let it fool you, right? If you read the synopsis for the book, it's going to tell you that this is short stories, right? A collection of short stories. And yeah, in part it is, but if you pay attention, they are loosely connected within each other, and it's pretty cool to see these connections, right? To see if this story that you're reading right now is connected with any other one that you've read so far. And even if you don't make those connections, the stories themselves are fucking extraordinary. I mean, the first story of this book, it's way better than, for example, Tender is the Flesh by Basterrica. I mean, it touches on the same topic, right? But here, the writer, I want to say his name, um, Kawakami, in 10, 15 pages, does more than Agustina was doing with her book, right? That's the way I see it. So yeah, if you can read this book, I'm not done with it yet, but I can already recommend it to you because it's such a fantastic read, right? So, all right, guys, I really have to go now. They're waiting for me, and see you in the next one.